Hey team, welcome to Inside the Movie Photographer with Jasin Boland. Last week, we had a little conversation about my beautiful 14-24 2.8. Love this lens. Now today, I'm going to take you through the Nikon Z6II and what a camera it is. Incredibly fast autofocus and a buffer that's going to blow you away for this little series. So I've been in quarantine for the last little bit. Nothing wrong. I've just got back from shooting on a big action film, and one of the conditions of coming home is I have to do quarantine. Now, I know it's been tough for many of you guys in lockdown and in quarantine. All I can say is I'm feeling for you. I'm doing great. I'm being very productive, reinventing myself a little bit. All I can say is if you are doing it tough, there's plenty of people to chat to, including myself. So send me a message by Instagram or leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you. But while we're on it, the Z6II, now, or in the US, the Z6II. So really, I've got two cameras. Hey, so as I mentioned, I'm in quarantine and I've been trying to figure out how am I going to test it. I've got every film industry photographer on the planet saying, Tiger, what's going on with this camera? How's the autofocus? How's this? How's that? Well, I can sit there and tell you the autofocus is pretty special. Now, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to test it. And I've been thinking for the last 3 or 4 days. And at one stage, I had the boys coming over with a drone. And I was going to get them to fly it straight at me and, test it out like a bird in flight and, zip around, one of the little fast ones. But the authority said no to that. So then today I'm like, and I've been jogging. I've been doing jogging around my hotel room, which I did 12 Ks the other day, by the way. And I thought, well, hold on a minute here. I've got my pocket wizards. I've got enough cameras. So I set the camera up on a tripod and I ran towards it, or fast jog, not a sprint, and certainly not a walk. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed. Now, the way I did it is I wanted to shoot it and try and replicate some tricky situations that I deal with at work. So I heavily backlit the subject, me, and I wanted to start in a low contrast, low light area. So the camera had to find the focus to start with. And then I moved into a fast jog and I ran straight towards it. And I've got to tell you guys that I was pretty blown away, and it was holding focus all the way through. And I've actually got some examples for you. There was a couple of times where it didn't pick up. Don't forget, I'm firing it off with a pocket wizard, which isn't an ideal way to fire a camera off when you're shooting blind. And I couldn't see whether the first frame was in fact sharp. So that's another factor when you're shooting action. You got to start with the right conditions. But I found it very hard to trick it. And even on the couple of occasions that it didn't find focus in the beginning, by the time I'd got a third of the way or halfway into it, it did. And that was what surprised me amazingly. Now, the other thing that's important to me, apart from autofocus, is buffer. Shooting action, it's very important to me. Now, I did a test today and I was getting about 11 seconds on NEF 12-bit, 111 frames on high plus, so the high star. Now, on the normal high, I couldn't feel the buffer. It would just keep on rolling through. Now, I tested the same thing with my D6. I was only getting just under 3 seconds. So this is a massive improvement. I've got to say the Expeed really has turboed this camera to the point that I'm now getting the same frame rate on my Z6II as what I am on my D6. Now, not quite as much buffer because I did run out at 111, but this is a small camera and it's a very impressive camera. The improvements on this are well worth everything from trading from a 6 to a 6.2. Now, I've got 2 of these on the way. I've got this one, obviously, and I've got another one for my next film. And I'm going to be able to put them through their proper paces. So let's have a look at some photos. Don't laugh too hard. Sometimes you have to be a little bit innovative to come up with some ideas. I didn't want to photograph a brick wall. I wanted to photograph something that would actually make sense. And like I said, I'm photographing this in the blind with Pocket Wizards. Now, as you can see here, it's heavily backlit and it's low contrast light. Now, I shot it at 1600th of a second, 2.8 on my 70-200 S lens. I shot it at 135 millimeters because I wanted to give the subject some room to breathe and to see how as close as I could get up to minimum focus, that is. It starts off in this low contrast, as you can see, and then we pop into some more light as I get closer to the window. 3200 ISO as well. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit more out of it. So let's have a look. And I'm just gonna slot through them. So this first sequence is 25 frames in 2.6 seconds. And the second sequence, this one, is 22 frames at 2.3 seconds. So, you know, it's no walk, but it's no sprint, but it's a healthy jog. So there you go. Those two Expeed 6 processors certainly give this 6 series a massive turbocharge, not only on autofocus, but in buffer. Don't underestimate how important buffer is, because for me, shooting action, and for anything that you're shooting, you don't want your camera to run out of speed. As you can see, it's holding it all the way through. Like I said, you know, I had a couple where it didn't find focus on the first frame. I couldn't see that because, as you see, I'm shooting blind. I'm the only one in this room, and it was hard. But the only time it lost it was coming up to minimums. And here's a second pass. I'll take you back through the other one in a tick. But as you can see, off the start, through here, sharp all the way through in a low contrast light, start to pop into some better light here, and then still holding it, and just these last 2 frames here, it flipped over to the right eye. As I said, you know, I'm shooting blind, so I'm not able to control that. I wouldn't have been able to control that part anyway because I was into minimum focus, and the camera did very well to pick that out. And here we go, back into the other one, same thing. I need some Botox. What do you guys think? Anyway, so there you go. My crazy quarantine Z6II review. I don't know. I'd like to think that perhaps this is the first quarantine review on a camera. Certainly the craziest way to test out focus. But as you can see, look, I mean, I'm blown away. So what'd I say? It's pretty impressive. And, you know, it was tricky lighting conditions. As you know, I work in tricky lighting conditions all the time. The environment that I'm on is usually very dark, low contrast. And I got to say, this camera really, really picks up the focus. I mean, I was amazed. The other good thing about it too is that you can, on the wide autofocus area, you can now hone in on that and it will pick up human eye detect, and it'll also go onto animal detect as well. Now that's really good if you want to, you know, just pull something aside and, you know, you've got a bit of a tricky frame going on. You can get around that now, which is sweet. But for this example, I just used auto wide. I wanted to see how that worked. A few other things. You can obviously get a grip now, full control grip. With that grip too, you can charge through it, which is pretty impressive. And it's hot swappable with the batteries as well. So that's another big advantage. And for those that need it, there's now 2 slots. There's a CF Express and an XQD all in one, and then you've got a SD card slot. You can also have a completely clear frame with no data on it, which is great for me in the dark when I'm trying to look around for gear. It's also great for you guys' landscapes. It's good for night photography. It's good for everything, really. Just to have a completely clear frame. It's just like looking through an old optical viewfinder, isn't it, really? Very a DSLR. I can't believe how quickly I've moved over to the mirrorless though. It's really quite something else. You can also save the focus point to when it comes on. For me, I like it to bounce back to the middle. So I point it up and I'm a bit, you know, sniperish like that. So I know exactly where it's pointing at, you know, even if I can't get my eye up to the EVF. And also with the virtual horizon, That's a little bit more stealth, which I'm finding really good because you can see around it a lot better and it just lines up. There's a couple of little levels that balance in, which is really, really cool. And for my buddies in the film industry, you can now change the direction of the focus on the focus ring. So it'll be compatible to how you're feeling with your ARRI and your Panavision lenses. So that's a really good feature, I think. Now, I'm shooting Hoodman CF Express cards now. I don't use the second slot. I totally get it why other people need it. I only ever used overflow anyway. And for me, the speed of the CF Express is just unbelievable. And the Hoodman have these beautiful, beautiful card readers. This is the 128 steel. And I got to say, I'm running them in all my cameras now, and they're super fast. So thanks, Hoodman. You can also set the camera up to 900 seconds now, which isn't available in the Z6 and Z7. You've only you're limited at 30 seconds. This is a really good feature for lots of you guys, I'm sure. Now, you have to change it in the menu, but that's such an easy thing to do. Now, talking of which, there's a lot more options to set up your eye menu, your custom eye menu. Now, for me, I think it's great because it brings you close to your camera and you guys can learn to be pals, just like mine are. I have all my cameras set to exactly the same. So I pick them up, I know exactly where everything is. Now, the other thing too, for you guys that are using interval timer and time-lapse, there's some new options there as well. So all in all, this is a big jump for this camera. And like I said, for me, it's focus and buffer. Those two things alone are what's important. And I think it's nailed it. So if you can, it'd be great if you could subscribe, do the bell, leave any comments downstairs, and I'll be sure to get back to you. And like I said, I know it's tough out there. If you need someone to chat to, send me a message and I'll be sure to get back to you. But just remember, you're never alone. Okay, have a great day. Cheers.